What's going on? It's Ja'Van and LaRissa Johnson here. How y'all doing today? So we did a video back in September, and we've gotten quite a bit of feedback on it. And it was a video where we talked about waiting until marriage to have sex. We were virgins until we got married. And so, we've had some different questions about that. And so it's been some months ago since we made that video. So we figured we'd go ahead and address some of the different questions and things like that on the video. Sometimes people may leave a comment on Facebook or, inbox and things like that as well. So thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting.
Thank you.
Yes, and let's get into some of these questions. Now, I have some things written down, and then LaRissa has her phone over here too. So if you see us looking, we may be looking at some things. One of the questions was dealing with how we got through our engagement. We laugh a lot. That's one thing we do. All jokes aside, but
it's important.
It is. It's very important. As far as being able to laugh, being able to have fun, enjoy each other's company. So as far as it's important to to spend time in prayer. Even regarding the person that you're going to be courting, that's a very important piece of it. Not just to go and just pick whoever you want to pick type of thing. Once you've actually started the courtship, or you're moving in that direction, it's very important to voice your expectations, and from there you can have an understanding, because if one person is feeling a certain way about certain types of physical contact, non-sexual physical contact, and another person's feeling another way, it's important to address that. So, are you guys gonna hug? I've heard different types of stories. There's some people who have done nothing but held hands. There's some people who may kiss. There's some people who may do, things in between there. So I think it's very important for both people to have an understanding of that, so that nobody is surprised later on. But ultimately what it boils down to is definitely no sex before marriage. Definitely not that. You definitely don't want to do that.
I know that.
So it needs to be biblical. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So that was a big part of it as far as getting through our engagement. In that regard, was we had an understanding going into the engagement. Another thing is staying in the Word, together. Even though we were long distance, we could spend time in the Word, as far as we could talk on the phone, get into our Bible. All right, another question that we got was dealing with the boundaries part of things, so I'll let LaRissa talk about that.
Yes, so with boundaries, it's important that it goes back to the communication part of it. So you have to communicate your expectations,
absolutely,
what you're comfortable with, what you're okay with doing, what you don't want to do, and it's best if you do that in the beginning.
Right.
Obviously it's not written in stone, you can change things as you go, but you definitely want to make sure at the beginning you have that conversation. Primarily as far as physical contact, what type of physical contact you're comfortable with, what you kind of want to wait. For us personally, we gotta go back now.
Right.
With the boundaries that we had. We did hold hands. In the beginning, when we were we waited for our first kiss together on the lips for our wedding day. But in the beginning, during our courtship, there was no lip contact at all.
Right.
And then when we got engaged, we were okay, a little kiss on the cheek.
Yeah, that was nice.
It was so cute. But yeah, courtship, none of that. And I remember we did have those conversations in the beginning. I think we were just talking when we had those deep conversations as far as boundaries. I remember we were just talking. We were talking about what are your views on kissing? What are your views on drinking and that whole thing? Just so that you can decide whether or not this is even somebody you want to enter into a relationship with.
Yeah.
For us, because we had already talked about it during the talking phase, by the time we made it to courtship, we already knew what the expectations were. We knew that we obviously weren't going to have sex until the wedding night.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the key thing, is to have those conversations, and to be on the same page with that individual. And the way I look at it like this, I talk about sports sometimes, even in other videos. It's if I'm a coach and I'm recruiting a player, if I'm a college coach, and I want a player that plays defense and offense very good, but I'm talking to a player and he don't like playing defense, I'm going to move on. At the end of the day, I look at it sometimes when people, even when they're looking at a potential person, sometimes they're dealing with people who's not even on the same page. And so I feel it is very important to find somebody who's on the same page. Well, God blessed our relationship. With that being said, before we met each other, there were other things, other timelines before we met each other. So sometimes, it's
own timeline.
Exactly. And our relationship with each other is great, but we went through things before meeting each other. And so, it helped prepare us.
But it's worth it.
Absolutely.
The wait is
absolutely
worth it. Whether you're waiting to meet the right person or waiting to sleep with the right person.
Yes.
Sleep, that sounds so bad. Waiting to have sex with that person. What's the word? That's what I'm trying to say. Regardless, it's worth the wait.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been well worth the wait, like LaRissa talked about. I mean, it's been well worth the wait. And so I think the thing about it is, after the fact, once you've had the communication, once you went through the process of talking about things, and then, you get into the marriage, you already know, okay, once we get married, this is the way we want to run our household. Now, there are things you still learn about each other, even as far as like in the sex category, there's things you learn, and so, but it's a beautiful thing to explore with your spouse. And so I think the thing to do is you got to realize that God knows what he's doing. I know as humans, we can feel like, well, our way, or this is what society says, or whatever. But at the end of the day, I want to be doing things the way God says to. A lot of things that the world may push or say, you got to do this or do that. No.
They're wrong.
Exactly. Do things God's way. And so I think that's very important. But I mean, we're both very happily married. Things are going great. God is blessing our marriage, and we're thankful for that. And I mean, I would definitely recommend, waiting until you get married. I would definitely recommend having conversation, communication, talking about things, and trusting God. I mean, it's a faith walk. I mean, if you watch some of our other videos, you may see kind of like with us, we took big steps of faith as far as we was in 2 different states. We relocated. So these are just some things, we wanted to deal with some of the questions. And once again, thank y'all for watching. And if you have other questions, feel free to let us know. We'll be doing other videos in the future. And we want to thank you for watching this. You have a blessed day.